Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Manal Talks Books. I'm Manal and let's talk books. Okay, so today, this is a very exciting video. I've always wanted to do one and it's a book tag video, so it's probably in the title. I went on Google and I just wrote book tags and I found a bunch, and there was one that was calling to me, so it's called the Romance Reader book tag. I'm a huge fan of romance. I love romance and everything, literally everything. So I was very excited. It's a book tag and a romance book tag. It's got 6 questions, so this shouldn't be a long video. Let's hope so. First, let me tell you what the book tag is from. So the Romance Reader book tag, I found it on this girl's page. I think she's a blogger. She's called Lily's Blissful Pages, and she got this book tag from Cat with a Book on Instagram. Yeah, so you can go follow them. The first question is, at what age did you start reading romance? The first romance books I ever read where the romance was the central plot, or at least a big part of the plot, it was in paranormal. So back in the day when I was like 10, 11, or 12, it was the Twilight era, and I was a huge Twilight fan, and so a lot of books I would read were paranormal romances. The first book I actually remember reading when I was, I think, 11 or 12 is Ne Meurs pas Libellule. It's in French, but the title is Don't Die Dragonfly, and it's by Linda Joy Singleton, who is an author who wrote a lot of books, but I don't hear anything about her on BookTube, nor anything about this series. This one was the first book where the romance was a big part of the plot, but it's about this girl who's a seer, and she can predict the future. But she's this 16-year-old girl, and she lives with her grandma in this small town. She goes to high school, and she sees this girl with a dragonfly tattoo dying, and then she's like, is this gonna actually happen or not? But she doesn't want to tell people because there was something that happened at her old school where she predicted someone's death, and then people were like did she do it? And it was really good. I actually want to reread these books. That's why I kept them. Yeah, so I would just back in the day go to the library and pick out these books and devour them. So to answer the first question, at what age I started reading romance, I started reading romance when I was about 11, 12 with this book. The second question is, if you could pick one hero to meet from your favorite romance novels, who would it be and why? So I choose to interpret this question as, if you could be with one of your romance heroes, who would it be? So your perfect guy. But now rereading this question, that's not what I get from it at all. But yeah, so my first interpretation was, so if you could meet one of your male leads or female leads in a romance novel, who would it be and why? So I had a lot of trouble with this. I didn't know who to pick because there were a lot of heroes that I really I just love to meet. So I came to the conclusion that my perfect male hero in a romance novel is John Tucker from The Goal by Elle Kennedy. He is everything I would want in a man. Here's why, okay? He plays hockey. I'm a huge hockey fan. He is so sweet, so loyal, just really caring, really a nice person, and he plays hockey, so he's like a jock type, which I really like. And he's got this beard. He's rugged and all muscly and big and just perfect. The third question is the most exciting one, and one I'm really excited to answer, and it's who are your favorite romance authors? So I have three that I really wanted to mention that I don't think get enough love. So the first is Mariana Zapata, which is a well-known romance author, and I recently, this past year, I read her books, and the thing with her books is they're really long, but they're really slow burn, okay? And the first book I read from her was The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. I was expecting to hate it because I don't like slow burn. I just want the romance at least halfway into the book. So I was like, I'm not sure I'll like this. So I started reading The Wall of Winnipeg and Me, and I ended up loving it. And it was very surprising because nothing happened until like the last few chapters. It was a 500-page book, and nothing between the two leads happened until the very end. But I still enjoyed it so much. I've read 3 of her books, and From Lukov with Love is my favorite, and it's again slow burn, but it's really good, and it's about ice skating, and she made me love ice skating, which is a sport that I've never really thought about. Also, I love how in her books it's really focused on family. There's a lot, her main characters have like these big families, and I really love that. I love their interactions and the dynamics of the families and everything. I also love that a lot of her leads are Latina, and I like that in both of her sports romances, the female is actually the athlete. So Mariana Zapata, if you want a good slow burn, even if you're not into slow burns, please give her a try because she will make you change your mind. But I still don't think that I like slow burns from anyone else. But Mariana Zapata, like, honestly, I've never seen that. Like, an author who writes a 500-page romance book where the romance actually happens just at the very, very end, and the book being so good and so entertaining, and so you can't put them down. Like, her books, you're gonna read them in 2 days, which I did. More than 500 pages sometimes. Like, the second romance author I would like, that is my favorite, is Elle Kennedy, which I mentioned from The Goal. The first book of hers I read was The Deal. And I discovered her a couple of years ago when I went on Goodreads and I searched for new adult sports romance. And one of the first suggestions was The Deal. And I read the synopsis and I was like, ooh, fake dating. I like that trope. So I picked it up. And not only there was fake dating, but it's about hockey. So it's about a bunch of hockey players. I'm a huge hockey fan, and I'm actually wearing a Montreal Canadiens jersey shirt, and I have a jersey right here, which is falling off. I fell in love with Elle Kennedy when I read this, and I devoured the rest of her books. I'm not gonna rant on Elle Kennedy and her books in this video because I have so much to say, and this could literally last all day. The third romance author I really love, which I discovered recently, like this past year, is Rachel Reed, and she is actually a Canadian author. She is a fan of the Habs, which is my team, you know, like, again, Montreal Canadiens. She writes about hockey, and she writes male romances. The series that I've read of hers is called Game Changers. This series is really great. I've read all the books, and the 4th one is actually going to come out this September. I'm really excited. So the first book is about Scott Hunter, who is this like hotshot superstar for the New York hockey team, and he's been having like a bit of a slump. And so everyone's like, ooh, maybe he's lost his edge or whatever. And then one day he walks into this smoothie shop, and he meets Kit Christopher, this like graduate college student, history student, and he makes him a smoothie. And then that night, Scott goes on to score a hat trick, which is when you score 3 goals in the same game. And he goes back to that shop and gets another smoothie every time he has a game. And he thinks that the smoothies and Christopher bring him luck. And then there's a romance that develops between Christopher and him. And Scott is gay, but he's been so far into the closet since he was a kid, because he knew that hockey was not for everyone, which, ironically speaking, the NHL slogan is hockey is for everyone, but it sure as hell isn't. By the end of the first book, Scott comes out publicly, and throughout the rest of the series, it's in a world where there's one gay hockey player, and that's Scott. So it's really great. The fourth question is, what is your favorite romance novel to reread? Then I went through my Amazon Kindle app on my phone, and there was one book that I was like, yeah, that's the one. And it's called Nobody's Baby But Mine by Susan Elizabeth Phillips. Let me tell you why I love her books and why I love rereading this book. It's hilarious, okay? Her books are just, the banter is mwah, chef's kiss, okay? The banter between the characters, the subplots, the town where it takes place, everything is just so perfect. I always laugh whenever I read her books, and this one in particular. This one is about Jane, who is a physicist and she's like super smart, okay? She was in college when she was 16, and her intelligence was always is like a big insecurity for her, because she doesn't have a lot of friends. When she was in college, she was like this 16-year-old kid, like the child, like she didn't, she couldn't have any relationships with the older kids because obviously she's a minor. She didn't have friends, and she was always like skipping grades, and she felt really ostracized because of her high IQ. And now she's like 34, and she's only ever had one relationship where the guy dumped her after like years of being together, and she wasn't really like into him anyway. It wasn't very exciting, but she really wants a baby because she's 34 years old, and she really, really wants a baby. However, she doesn't want her baby to be as intelligent as her. So she doesn't want her child to have to go through whatever she went through. So it was very important for her to find a dumb sperm donor. So one day she sees Cal, who is this football player, and she sees him on TV, and she's like, he'd be perfect. And so things kind of start off from there. And ironically, Cal is very smart, but to her, she's like, oh, he's just a football player. He's just throwing a football around. Like, how smart can he be? It's hilarious. Yeah. Every time I reread it, it feels like the first time. And what I love about her books as well is that there's always another romance subplot amongst the main romance subplot, the main romance plot. Yeah, so the fifth question is, what book would you recommend to a non-romance reader? So this one, I didn't know how to interpret this question. So is it like, what book would you recommend to a non-romance reader to get them into romance? Or I didn't really know what to think of this question. So I just decided to go with like my experience. So I have this friend who doesn't read a lot of romance. She's not against it or anything, but she's just not like me, who reads everything romance. So she's not a big romance reader, but she does enjoy like a good ship once in a while. When I read Red, White, and Royal Blue, I recommended it to her, and she read it and she loved it. So that's what I'm going with. Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I would say that this book is great because there's a romance, but it's not necessarily the only thing that's going on in this book. It deals with like racism and sexism and America's political and socio-political climate and stuff like that. If you're a fan of politics, but it also has representation. What surprised me the most was that my friend, she doesn't like smut that much, but she did like this book, which contains smut. It's definitely not a huge part of the book, but it's there. So I would say this book. I'm not really sure about this question, to be honest, but again, I'm going from my experience from what I've recommended one of my friends who isn't a romance reader, and she really, really liked it. The sixth and final question is, which is your favorite? Contemporary, suspense, or historical? This is not hard at all. Contemporary. Because I read a lot more contemporary romance than I don't read suspense, really. I don't think I own a suspense book, and I do read historical romance, which I love, but I haven't read enough of historical romance to say that it's my favorite. But yeah, definitely contemporary romance is my go-to whenever I want a romance and I just want to focus on the romance. So that's it for the romance reader book tag. Don't forget to like and to subscribe to this video, to my channel. To like the video and to subscribe to my channel. I really hope you like this, and if you're a big romance reader, I hope you got some recommendations. So thank you for watching. I love you.